Welcome to the Blind Zone, where curiosity brings its own reward. And what am I curious about today? Well, I was curious enough about the water filtration system that I had been hearing about that I decided to make one myself. And I would show you a picture of it, but no, no, it didn't come out as pretty as the ones that I saw them do. But I'm going to tell you what I did, and then I'm going to tell you, because it's like everything else I do. I made it, and then I had to remake it because I goofed it up the first time. That's the pattern of my life. So the water filtration system I decided to emulate was the two 5-gallon gravity fed ceramic clamshell filter that one bucket stood on top of the other, and then it filtered through the clamshell ceramic filter and fell into the bottom bucket, and that's where you got your cleaned water. So I'll describe the process. Now, you have to use food safe buckets. You just can't go to a big box store and get, their buckets. They may be okay, but I chose food safe. And I will say that I had bought the nicest buckets that, and again, I didn't spend a ton on this. It cost me a total of about $60. But I bought some really nice buckets, and the lids screwed on because I figured I didn't want anything crawling in there inadvertently that I wouldn't know about. But it turns out that the lid was too too deep. It was too wide. And the clamshell it's ceramic, and out of the bottom I call it the straw, and it pokes through the bottom of the top bucket and the top of the bottom bucket. But because the lid was so wide, the water didn't end up going all the way to the bottom bucket, and it went between the bottom and the top, and it caused a big mess. So then I had to figure out what else I could use in place of that lid so that it would have less obstruction and it would just flow into the bottom bucket. So I tried a piece of cardboard, and I found that that really was the problem, was the depth of the lid. So I thought, well, a pizza pan would be perfect. And the diameter of the buckets I chose were 12 inches. So I bought a 14-inch pizza pan. And because that's obviously food safe, I figured that would be fine. But then I came upon another idea that I had already in my possession, a bottom of a large pot. So it was a saucer for this large pot. And so I turned that upside down, and I drilled the hole through the bottom of the top bucket, the saucer, and the same size and location, obviously. And I was able to fit the ceramic filter through the top bucket, through the saucer, and then with the nut, I was able to tighten that all up. And that worked fine after I figured out the other was too thick. So it doesn't look real pretty, but it works. And I do like the fact that the buckets I chose have the lids that screw on so that the top bucket is safe from things, crawling in there, and I would never know they were in there. Now they say that the two clam shells that I bought, they each can clean up to 1,000 gallons each. So that's 2,000 of regular tap water. But if you have to purify lake water, river water, rainwater, that's going to clog those filters up much faster. And part of the reason I did this was because I hate the taste of my tap water. It tastes like the retention pond outside. It smells terrible. And I've just drank bottled water for the last 4 years. Well, I feel really bad for all the stuff that I'm putting into the landfill. So I thought this might be a good alternative. And I will give you one other hint or tip. Um, don't make these adjustments in your kitchen just in case you have a problem. I'm not saying that I did, but I'm saying I probably did. So I did most of the work in the shower where, whatever happened was going to happen in there, in a water, in an area that accepts, volumes of water. And you also have to understand that water is very heavy. It weighs over 8 pounds per gallon, and these things take 5 gallons. So I wasn't able to get another bucket and dump it in the top. I had to take a 1-gallon pitcher and go gallon by gallon to fill it up. Then on the bottom bucket, the second mistake I made was I had bought a spigot so that, you know, you could get the water out when you needed it. But I had put the spigot too close to the bottom. And whenever you have, and let me back up a step, and you have to set this on something because you can't put this flat on the floor. So I put it on a small stool, and so it raised it off the ground by 12 inches. And whenever I accidentally bumped the spigot, it would leak. So if I were to ever do it again, I would buy different buckets. I would buy um, I would buy probably the same spigot, but I would raise it up a quarter of an inch so that it just wouldn't be in harm's way if I accidentally hit it. What I did instead was I just tipped it to the side so it's not hanging straight down anymore, and the water still comes out just fine. Because if the higher you raise it, then all the water beneath that point cannot come out the spigot. Because FEMA and other people, the Preppers Society, recognize that you need a gallon of water per day per person. Now, honestly, I don't drink that much in a day, but then I'm not doing anything that makes me sweat or, you know, where I need more water. And I will tell you the other thing I did purchase, it's called the Life Straw. And I saw this guy had used a Life Straw drinking out of some of the most grossest things, but he never got sick because the Life Straw is supposed to be able to filter out 99.9% of the yucca junk that's in, you know, water. And if you're desperate, you want it clean, but if you don't have time to boil it or you don't have time to, you know, do something else, this is a quick thing. And so it wasn't that expensive. I got 5 straws for like 40 bucks or something, but you can look into that. But I just have that on hand just in case. And because I thought, well, you know, just in case. Now, what I will tell you is I looked at all those empty bottles that I have and I thought, well, geez, I could just refill these. And so if you go online, there's two different thoughts on that. The one thought is, yes, you can reuse these, but you have to wash them out with bleach water, and then you have to rinse them out and then refill them if you're filling them with tap water. Well, by the time I did all that, I wasted a lot of water. So I decided that I would fill up 24 bottles with the water that I was, you know, testing my test samples out of my water filtration system, and I filled them up for things like, well, if I needed to wash my hands or pour it in the back of the toilet or whatever, I would have some just water that wasn't, it probably was okay to drink, but I wasn't going to chance it. But I wasn't going to also go through all the work of putting bleach water, cleaning them all out, refilling them. I just wasn't going to go through all that. It just seemed like a big waste of water. And the other thing, there's conflicting information is some of the preppers say you can use sunlight to purify your water, put it in a glass something in the sun for 12 hours. But then they also say, oh, don't put your water in the sun because it'll breed bacteria. So I don't know which would be true in that, and I'm really hoping never to have to find out. But water is a commodity that you know that if you don't have, your life is going to be so much shorter. I mean, you can live quite a long time without food, but water is one of those must-haves. So in thinking about it, I'm glad I did the water filtration system. And I have to tell you that after I got it all together and I took my first sip expecting it to taste much better than the stuff that comes out of my tap, it honestly wasn't that much better, but again, I'm sitting here in a air conditioned house. Nothing bad is happening, and it's almost like saying, "Oh, I wish we would have shaken that and not stirred it." So it was okay. It wasn't fabulous, but in a pinch, it'll probably be the most delicious water I've ever had. So that's it. You need water, so you need to think about if you're gonna store water, buy bottled water, what access you have to water, and look around and make a plan for it. So again, my water filtration system is very functional now that I've gotten it to work correctly. I have my Life Straw in case of, you know, necessity, and I know that if I needed to, there's a lot of rain here. I could put out a bucket and collect rainwater and then pour it through the filter if need be. But water is something that you absolutely need, and you need to think about this in plans of preparedness. So that's it. That's my advice for you today on the blind zone, and we'll see you next week.